Buying the latest Macs and having all this gear around me is lovely, but of course, like you, I buy it for a reason. And that's to use in my job, which in my case is mainly audio and video editing. Now, a few weeks ago, I asked you if you wanted a better look at how I make these videos every week, and that's what I'm going to go through with you in this video. So if you're interested in real-world audio and video editing and what it takes to make a YouTube video, this one's for you. At the heart of all of this is my M4 Pro Mac Mini, which has 48 gigs of RAM, and I'll be editing directly from an external Thunderbolt 5 SSD. I'll be showing you literally everything I do, from processing the audio to creating a session in Final Cut, and then how I edit, and I'll show you some of my favorite MotionVFX plugins and how simple they are to use. I'm going to show it you all the way through to my export settings, ready to upload to YouTube. Before we get going into Final Cut and start to edit though, first I process the audio, so that's where we're going to start in Adobe Audition. I'm David, and this is Talking Tech. And this is how the audio starts. This is the WAV file that comes into Audition. I record the audio independently from my video. I use a Rode NTG4A shotgun mic, and that's recorded in WAV, 48K mono, and this is how the audio starts. When I bring it in, I open up this chain that I've built up over a number of years. I have it saved down in Audition, and I apply the same chain every single time, and I'll explain all of those plugins to you in just a moment. But before I start using those plugins, the first thing I do is run it through the Vocaster One hub. The mic comes into Audition via Vocaster One, and that adds some processing to it. Right, now to the plugins. I have noise reduction plugins at the top, and then I have EQ and compression at the bottom of the chain. The first plugin is a Waves plugin that I bought. It's a noise reduction plugin. It's just a single slider, and it just cleans out all of that muddiness, those colors down the bottom there, and the spectral frequency you can see, that's background noise. That's hum, electrical hum, room noise. All of that will go when we process the audio in just a moment. The second noise reduction plugin is another Waves one, Debreather. You'll never hear a large from me. I hate that. I want to make your audio as easy to listen to as possible. That way you'll hopefully watch more of my videos. So this is a Waves plugin that debreaths. Next is an Audition plugin. This is their de-reverb. Although this studio is lightly sound treated, it's not soundproofed. There's a little bit of reverb in here. So I process all frequencies just with very light reverb. Next is de-essing. I have it set to 6,000 Hertz. That suits my voice and my sibilance. The bandwidth is just how far either side of my sibilance I have this compressor set to. A de-esser is basically like a compressor for the sibilant sounds, for those again. So hopefully the audio is easier for you to listen to. There's nothing offensive. Now we're getting into the EQ. The vocal rider is from Waves. This is a very subtle amount of EQ, just evens my voice out. It's subtle, but I like what it does to my voice. Next is an Audition plugin. This is the parametric EQ. This is where the magic begins to happen. I get rid of all that muddiness down the bottom there, add some sparkle at the top, boost the mids so my voice is more present. And then last in the chain is compression. This is, again, native to Adobe Audition. The compressor, basically, the idea of the compressor is that it makes the louder parts quieter, the quieter parts louder, so that everything is a more even volume. So that's the chain, and that's the reason it's in that order. And once I've gone through and just checked they're all set as I want, then I'll just apply this chain. Now, you will have to alter the settings for your voice, but basically the order of the chain is correct. When it gets to the bottom, there's an age-old argument in audio whether you should have compression before EQ or EQ before compression. I happen to like to do everything before I compress the audio. That way, it's the last thing in the chain, and I know that everything has been processed and set, and then it's just the way I prefer working, but I don't think there's a right or wrong to it. So everything's virtually done now, and you'll notice that visually the thing you'll notice is that the waveform gets much more even. There you go. It's much more compressed. And you can see all that muddiness in the back as background noise has gone. It's all black. It means it's clean audio now. But it's too quiet. You can see that waveform is really small. So we bring the audio into Audition's match loudness. Video is set to -23 LUFS. LUFS is loudness unit to full scale, and it's a scientific formula of how the human ear hears audio. So every time you hear one of my videos, it should be exactly the same audio level to your ear. We run that. Once Audition's done its thing, I just double check over here in the amplitude statistics. I just scan it to check it's at -23, belts and braces. There you go, it's done. So the audio is now EQ'd, compressed, set to the correct volume, and ready for me to take out and export into the folder, ready to start the video project in Final Cut Pro. With the audio ready, it's nearly time to open Final Cut. But before doing that, I just want to talk about file management, as it'll be a huge help to you later on when you start to edit. Boring, yes, I know, but trust me, you'll thank me later. We're nearly ready to get into Final Cut. But before we do, if it's Final Cut you're really interested in, bear with me. This does lead neatly into Final Cut, but it's something I wish somebody had suggested to me when I started to use Final Cut. I switched to Final Cut about 18 months ago. I used to use Premiere before that. And in Premiere Pro, file management isn't as important as it is in Final Cut. And you'll see why as we go through in just a moment. So before I start any project, you know I work here in the studio off an M4 Pro Mac Mini. I've got an Acasis Thunderbolt Thunderbolt 5 hard drive attached to it all of the time. I have various folders in there. One of the folders is FCP, Final Cut Pro. I drag that to the desktop and rename it. This is the project that I made a few weeks ago, a video, The Truth About the M4 Pro Mac Mini. You'll find it on the channel. This is a project that I saved knowing I was going to make this explainer for you. And in that folder are subfolders that I'll be using during the course of making every video. The audio, that's where the mix down audio goes to. So when we just mix down the audio in Audition a minute ago, that goes into that folder by itself. The B-roll, that's where obviously all of the B-roll for that project gets put into and taken into Final Cut in a little while. The export is where the final export of the video will go once we've finished the project. This Final Cut project folder is hugely important. Final Cut has a way of making massive cache files. This one was 200 gigs. If you're not in control of where those cache files are going, your Mac, any Mac, is going to fill up pretty quickly. So I put them all into a local folder within this project folder. So at the end, I mean, you don't even need the cache file at the end, but you can either keep it, archive it, everything's together. It's not on the hard drive on your Mac, and everything is in one neat location. It's just a much better way to edit and archive. It's a habit you really need to get into, and I'll show you how we go about that in Final Cut in just a moment. The logo folder has my signature, the little white signature in the top corner, and the black and silver roundel that you see me use on the intro. The raw audio, that's where I save the raw audio from the session so that if anything should happen, I've always got that to go back to. It's kind of a redundancy folder. Screen recordings, if I'm showing you my website or Apple's website, any screen recordings I take will go into that folder. The thumbnail, that's where all of the, that's what goes into thumbnail, all of the images and Photoshop files and various JPEGs. I went through different iterations by the looks here of what JPEG I was going to use for the actual thumbnail. So that's where they all get put. And the video, that's where the video files. So I shoot two videos normally. I shoot a cutaway angle on the iPhone 16 Pro Max in ProRes Log, and that's that file, which is why it's so huge, 142 gigs. This is why I use external drives to put all of my projects on as soon as I'm finished with them, because they're big files. And that's the file from the Canon. So create yourself a folder and use that folder every single time. I'm doing exactly the same for the video you're watching now, how I make videos in Final Cut Pro using MotionVFX. I've got exactly the same files in there. So everything you're watching now on this particular video is exactly how I'm showing you that I produced this other one about the M4 Pro Mac Mini a short while ago. So file management out the way, but it is really important. Now it's time to get into Final Cut. If you're enjoying this video, don't forget a sub supports me and the channel a huge amount. So if you want to help the channel grow, you know what to do. And don't forget, we've got our own new Discord server now too. So if you want to carry on the chat all week long with other like-minded Apple users, that's the place to be. There's a link for that and for my free weekly video newsletter in the description. Okay, let's finally start editing in Final Cut then. Again, I'll try to walk you through every step and show you everything I do when I edit these videos. And I'll also be talking about some of my favorite plugins from MotionVFX. Now, I know it seems that we've done a fair bit of work before getting into Final Cut, but I like to be methodical. The more you do it, the work we've done beforehand will get quicker and quicker. You'll get into a workflow and it will be really quick in the end. But my reason for doing it, I'm a very methodical editor, is that once I'm editing, I want as few distractions as possible. I want as little friction as possible. And the work we've done beforehand, particularly creating those folders, will make this part of your job so much easier. With Final Cut Pro, you use a lot of keyboard shortcuts. A lot of them come pre-packed with Final Cut. You'll find them out as you get more experience. Some you can save and create yourselves. The first one I've done is just by simply hitting number 1. And I'm going to call this project Final Cut Pro, not too imaginative. And what you should do is copy that to your clipboard. And you'll see why in just a moment. Then you need to go to whichever folder you're working with, and that's the one we're working with. Go to the Final Cuts project folder, and that's where you want to save everything. Now, this is crucial. You saw how big that cache folder file got. I think about 200 odd gigs. You don't want that going onto your Mac's hard drive. I don't care how big your hard drive is. Pretty soon, it'll begin to fill up. Now, the first place you need to go is to modify settings. Check where you've got that stored, which we've got our Final Cut project in there. And then you can't change this folder, the templates location, but just check these other two are going to the same place. And the benefit of this is now all of these project folders and files will be in that one folder. for you to either store, archive, delete, whatever you want to at the end, but they're not splintered away all over your Mac's hard drive. They're in one location. So it's just a good way of being neat and tidy and accurate. So now we've got this collection ready to begin to import some assets to it. Command I, and we go to the folder that we're using. Audio. Now, you'll see I've only got that one audio file in there. Another good reason for having the raw audio separate is because if we had that raw audio in there, you'd have two audio files in there, and when you bring that into Final Cut, it would look confusing. So another good reason for keeping them separate, just the EQ'd finished audio file in there. And in the video folder, we know we've got those two video files that I told you about. So I'm going to import those two folders, and you'll now see that we have got two folders in there, the audio and the video. What I'm going to do first of all is go through and just do a little bit of naming of these. That looks horrible at the moment. That's the iPhone footage. And I'll tell you why it looks horrible. It shoots in log on the iPhone, and it's applied the Apple color correction log to it, and I don't like it. The LUT to it, I don't like it. So just turn that off. To see the window I'm in here, by the way, make sure you're in settings in this information tab. It's at Rec 2020, which is not what I want. I want Rec 709. And I'm also going to change the name of the camera, and you'll see why that's important in just a moment's time. So that's the iPhone sorted out. I'm going to do the same on the other two files as well. The Canon, that is my footage straight out the camera. That's how good the Canon is. It doesn't shoot in log, but that's how good the color is. It is in 709, but I just, for belts and braces, changed that to 709 as well. There's nothing for me to do in LUT, of course, just to name the camera. And then with the audio, same thing. I'm just going to call that EQ, so I know which audio file I'm working with. So over in this preview window, select all. That's all those files selected. If you were doing just a single camera shot and audio, you would now hit G, which would group them together and synchronize. But we've got a multicam clip. So I've created a shortcut, number 2. And here it says untitled multicam. Get rid of the untitled and paste in what we just typed a moment ago. So everything's called the same name as well. Final Cut multicam clip. Final Cut syncs audio brilliantly. In Premiere Pro, I used to have to do it manually. Final Cut just does it seamlessly in the background for you. It's never, ever, ever let me down. Let that do its thing, and you'll get a multicam clip there. All you need to do now is Command N, create a new project, again, paste. You'll see the benefit of it now. Yes, I shoot in 24p, 4K, everything's right. That's our project. So now I can just hit E and drop our project down, our multicam clip down onto our timeline. Now that audio file you can see is absolutely tiny at the moment, so it's the wrong audio file clearly. What I'm going to do is go to audio angle and pick out EQ, and you can see now we've got just all those three titles, which makes it super easy to see what we're working with. If you want those to be slightly bigger, Control Option 2 makes those audio files bigger. Before you cut and make any edits, there's a few things you need to do globally. For the audio, for instance, I'll come over to the audio tab. I'll hit loudness. It's the last bit of noise suppression. Sorry, not loudness. I'll hit voice isolation. The last little bit of noise suppression I'm going to add on, but because we're compressing it again, I found that it takes off about 5 dB. So I've added 5 dB back into the audio. And then you want to look at skin tone before you do anything else. And to do that, Command 7. In this window here, I've got the vector scope and the Luma open. If you don't see this line, which is the skin tone line, just go into here and make sure that it's ticked on. That skin tone line is universal for all colors of skin, dark, light, fair. It's just the recognized place where the skin should sit so it looks correct on screen. A mate of mine showed me this workaround and it's brilliant. Simply crop. He should honestly copyright this. It is so easy. Just crop it in so it's just skin showing, which obviously on talking head videos is nice and simple. And look at that. We are absolutely bang on the skin tone line. Release the crop. And then this line, I don't want anything to go over 100. That peak there is this light here. So I'm just going to reduce the brightness, the highlights down a little bit. That 95 line is totally arbitrary. You can move that as you wish. And again, you don't want the shadows dipping underneath 0. They're not, but I'm just going to move them up a touch. So I know nothing's clipping either way now. And I'm set. That's my Canon footage I'm happy with. Command 7, undo that window. Then Control, Command, and 6. I'm going to save that as a reference frame. And now I'm going to try and match my iPhone footage as closely as possible to that. Another shortcut that you can do is Command, Shift, and the front and back arrow keys, and that will switch between the different cameras. The first thing I've noticed here is the eyes are at a different level. So I'll go into the editor window, scale all, and I'll just bring that up a little bit so that the eyes are on the same level. Obviously now, as you can see, it's in log, it's flat, but in my presets, I have saved myself a preset, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. Blackmagic May 25, drag that on, and it's more or less there. It's so near. It's saved most of the work. If I go to the color wheels, I could just bring down the mid-tone saturation so the skin's more similar colored. Then I could go into the color adjustments to bring back some black into it. And that's kind of it. That's about right. It's never going to be exactly the same because they're two complete different camera sources, but that's good enough. Bearing in mind that those throwaway shots, I only used 5, 10, 15 seconds at a time. They're very short, but equally, I don't want it being a car crash. You've never complained, so I'm guessing I'm doing my job okay. And that's how I go around how quickly I can convert my iPhone 16 ProRes log footage to look like that. Once you've added in whatever you're doing, so you've added in your color adjustment log, to it there, you've done your color adjustments, your color wheels, just save effects preset, it will save the color, and then you'll find it under your presets here, and you can just drag it onto your footage. While you're at the back here, you could obviously clip off that bit because you know that is definitely rubbish. Another great tip to learn, well, we can save that, get rid of that frame now, and I'll go back to the Canon camera by using the shortcuts, Shift, Command, and arrows. And then from there, I want to begin editing. So this is another great tip I've learned. Just put a 0, hit return, and the playhead returns right back to beginning for you. The first thing I will do on the first pass of editing is go through and take out obvious gaps. Using the B tool, I can go through and see obvious places where I did retakes. Even almost without listening to it, I can see that those are pieces I can take out. So I would go through and do that the whole way through. By the way, another great shortcut for getting this to fit left to right on your timeline is Shift and Z. So I can now immediately see all the gaps that I immediately need to cut out and get rid of. That's how I go through on the first pass, getting rid of all the obvious cuts. Once I've done that, the second pass is tidying things up. So for instance, when I go into the waveform a little bit more, I might look in, say, there, for instance, and think, right, that's a place that's obviously got a pause in that shouldn't be a pause. I will take that one out. Now, this is beginning to tidy things up. I will go through, cutting out all the little gaps that I think are just a fraction too big. Perhaps that one there again, I'd like to see, or that one there, I'd like to see a little bit tighter. So maybe I'll just go into the audio and begin taking out and really tidying up and punching in to make sure that it's a nice, fluent video. By the end of this second pass, my video is in the position I want it to be for the finished article. I'll also do jump cuts at this phase, at this point of the editing as well. So I'm sure you know what a jump cut is. It's when you go from one to another very quickly, and say that I wanted that one a fraction larger to add a bit of impetus to it, 110%, just on that single bit of video. And now we'll have a jump cut going from there into there, adding dramatic intent of something you're trying to emphasize. So that's kind of showing you what I do on that second pass. On the third pass is when things begin to get a bit more creative. I'll timestamp it. So I have an Apple Notes open all the time. It's the same Apple Notes I use every week. I just change, obviously, the title and description. Everything sits in there. And when we timestamp it, it's simply a case of manually going through on a list, and we just look at the time there. So 12.12, and that will be a timestamp, and I'll just type whatever it is I'm talking about. So on that third pass, I'm beginning to timestamp, and that's also where I'll bring some B-roll in. And that, again, is where it's great to have folders. So we've got our B-roll folder we can bring in. All of the B-roll will sit in that folder. Now, another tip here. You could just drag your B-roll straight on. You could select all of it and drag the whole bit of B-roll onto your timeline and decide to edit it there if you wanted to. One quick way of getting rid of the audio, by the way, is Shift-Control-S. That will get rid of the audio. But if you decided rather than trying to manually edit it there, you could edit it in this view here. Simply by pressing I and O, that will select the bit of video that you've selected, bring it down, Shift-Control-S, get rid of the audio. And once I've used a clip, I will mark it by hitting F to know that it's a favorite. That way I don't duplicate using it again. I shoot plenty of B-roll, as you can see from my videos. So by marking it as a favorite, it means that I know that I won't duplicate it later on in the process. So then I just go through adding in B-roll. If your B-roll is not particularly well colored, the quickest fix is to use the enhanced light and color there. It works pretty well. and it will fix anything that's really badly out. But because most of my B-roll is, again, shot in the studio, it's in pretty good shape. So we've gone through, got rid of all of the major gaps. We've then gone through and tightened it up and got rid of smaller gaps and done the jump cuts. And we've also done a timestamp on it as well. And we're now adding B-roll. So imagine that we're at that stage where I've gone through, added in B-roll, Shift Control S, get rid of audio. We're at a point now to begin adding in the fun stuff, adding in the graphics. By the way, a couple of other shortcuts that are useful to know. If you use the semicolon key and just hit that, that will take you back to the previous edit that you've just made, which is a really handy and fast way of editing as well. The more times you can just keep your hands on the keyboard and edit, as I say, with less friction, the more work you're going to get done. So you've probably seen the intro that I cut for myself, where I have the round logo and it just then says talking Apple intelligently. Let me show you how I make that, for instance, using MotionVFX. Something I want to show you up here, by the way, this progress wheel here, that is backing up and saving. When I first started using Final Cut, nobody told me you didn't have to Shift Command S to save a project. That's what I've been doing in Premiere Pro, and it felt really weird. I got to the end of my first edit, thought, how do I save it? It just saves. That progress is showing you that it's saving in the background. It's worked every single time. Even on the odd occasion that Final Cut has crashed, it has still worked. It's flawless. So let me show you how I'd go about making that intro. MotionVFX. In the old days, you used to have a portal where you'd log in and you'd buy your various effects from MotionVFX. I had it saved as a favorite in Safari. I'd log into it. They'd all be stored in there, and then you sync it with Final Cut. The way it used to look is that the ones that I used before are all here. Keynote, MotionVFX freebies, and the M-Tracker 3D. But you don't have to do that anymore. There's a quicker and more seamless way. You download the M Extension plugin, and it sits here in your menu bar. And when you open that, you've got everything that you've bought from MotionVFX sitting here ready to use. It is brilliant. I'll come back to some of the other effects in a moment. Let's show you that intro. So I've saved these to my favorites with stars. They're ones I use all of the time. So I've dragged that down onto the timeline for a moment. Let's say this is, and again, with this window, you can drag it to wherever you want it to be so you can carry on editing. Let's say this is where I want my intro to be. I would just make a couple of cuts. And then I would drag that into that edit on the timeline. That's too long at the moment. So Control D, you'll see that the 6 here is highlighted. All you need to do is punch in the duration that you want. 300, I want 3 seconds, boom. It's now 3 seconds. But you'll see my logo isn't there at the moment. So this is where you begin to edit in MotionVFX. It's so simple. I've got to add a source. So at the moment, I don't have my logos in. So again, in these collections, we go over and bring my logo folder in. You're seeing the benefit of these folders now. Everything is seamless. In the logo now, I'm looking to add an asset. So it's saying, which do you want to use? It's that one I want to use. Yes, apply clip. Now I've got my logo in here. It's too small at the moment, so you can make it larger. That's how easy I add in the logo. Now I know as my logo starts to flicker in, that's where I want the flutter that I have. And for that, I just use sound effects from Premiere, from Premiere, old habits, from Final Cut. It's a flutter, I think, and it's a 3-second flutter. Must be that one then. So I drag that in. I know that's too loud. That's why I want it to kick in as the logo's coming in. So I just come up here and reduce it by 12 dB. So I know it's not too loud now. And then I have that line of text that I have that comes in as well. And that I've got saved to a favorite as well, which is there. And this is how quickly you can work with MotionVFX plugins. Not only are they effective, they're quick, super quick as well. So if I'm looking here, I might bring the sound effect in there, bring the text in there. And again, you edit the text or whatever you want. So this is where I would edit it to say, you know my strapline by now, talking Apple. So when you see this intro on the video that you're watching now, this is how I created it. I know the font I use is SF Pro Text. I know I use semi-bold, I don't alter the size. And that is my intro created with using MotionVFX. It's as simple as that. It looks professional, sharp, punchy, and it's done in a matter of seconds. So with this new way of working with this M Extension plugin, You can look at all the different collections. So if you know that you're, say, making a travel style video, you want to see what they filtered out for travel, you can just go into here, see what assets you've got in here, see if you like the way that looks. And if you like it, you simply download it, and then you would drag it to your timeline. It's as simple as that to use. Now you can see that is downloaded. I could drag that to my timeline. And in the same way that I did a moment ago, I could begin to alter everything about it. The colors, the fonts, the wording, everything I want can be altered. I don't use the same effects every single week. I want you to look at something fresh, but there are certain things I like the look of. I like clean fonts. I like the way they look. So I add a lot of things to my library, and this was a recent one. I love the way these are looking. So then from these, I would add in some of these overlays or text effects, and again, begin editing them. If I find one that I particularly like the look of, say I particularly like the look of that, I would simply add a star to it. Say if I like the look of that one, I can give it a gold star, and that will then be added to my favorites here. So I can just go into there really, really quickly. For instance, that you'll see me use a zoom a lot of the time. That is as simple as dragging in the zoom effect. I do nothing to it, but if you particularly watch the background, the chairs, you'll just see it gently zooms in. This is how I can edit videos so quickly. Honestly, MotionVFX was a game changer. And if that wasn't enough, there's another new tool they've got as well, which is fantastic. When I do my shorts, I used to take them into CapCut and add the captions in there, but there's no need to do that anymore. With MotionVFX now, you've got this Captions AI. And all you do is drag your audio file into here. It detects it's English. You tell it what resolution you need, what FPS you're shooting in. It will come up with a load of different themes for you, social media, which is one I use most of the time. You see you've got all the different themes. It gives you different styles. You can edit the text as normal in the editor, as I've shown you on the other MotionVFX plugins. And then you don't need to go into CapCut. You're in full control editing in here. All I would suggest is when you bring the audio file down, do it before you make any cuts. Edit the audio and video at the same time. It will save you a lot of time at the back end rather than trying to line the audio and captions up, I promise you. But it's brilliant. It works so well. It's another new feature they've got by just using this, adding it into the toolbar. I love it. If anything, you're spoiled for choice now, because when I first went into it and looked at these extensions, there is so much for me to look at. If you look at the collections, I mean, they just go on and on. There's something for everybody. You're spoiled for choice. I'll leave a link to MotionVFX in the description. If you're starting to edit in Final Cut and want to use these, honestly, they're what made me change to Final Cut, and they are just getting better and better and better. And also, do you remember you saw on some of my recent videos where I had a title that was tracking as the camera moved in real time? That was using something from MotionVFX. It's this M Tracker 3D. You drag that onto the clip that you want to move with. It scans it. It does all the work for you. Then you just drop the text effect on top, and it moves with the video. It is so simple to use. MotionVFX, give them a go. So we've now got to the point where I've got all of my graphics on, done all the jump cuts, removed all the pauses. I'm kind of done. That's more or less my work done. You know that I can change camera angles simply by using the shortcut, Shift Command and forward and back arrow to find which camera I want to use. It's as simple as that. Honestly, you're ready to export. It's that quick to do. And to export, I don't do anything fancy here at all. I just use the standard settings that Final Cut gives me. Delete those tags. I don't know what they're needed for, but I think they clog things up somewhere. Don't pretend to know what they're for, but delete them anyway. You don't need them. And then I just export the video and audio in H.264. That's 4K. Everything's fine. It's good to go. I then would export that out to the folder that we've got called the export folder that we created. And that's it. You've seen everything now of how I work in Final Cut Pro. It's such a fun bit of software to get into. It's great for editing in. I do prefer editing in this to Premiere. I've got nothing against Premiere Pro. I prefer the colors, the way they export out of Final Cut. And honestly, MotionVFX is just the icing on the cake. So I think I've pretty much shown you everything that I do day to day, week to week inside of Final Cut Pro. I obviously use these a fair bit for scaling. I might even use the scaling for the effects as well. For instance, if I've got something, one of these titles that I wanted to make bigger, you could simply go into there and content scale, make it bigger without having to alter the font size at all. Everything is so editable. There you go. Final Cut Pro, made simple. Hopefully that gets you on the way. Those MotionVFX plugins are what lift my videos to the next level. I'd be lost without them. Right now, they have their biggest ever store-wide promotion running until the 24th of June. So now's the perfect time for you to turn up the heat on some of their awesome plugins. There's some stunning deals on their Cine Design Studio Ultimate plan, for example, and if you use my exclusive code, which you'll find in the description, then you could even start with a 14-day free trial. That's it then. That is my complete editing process, from raw audio through to the finished file ready to upload to YouTube. Hopefully, that'll get you on your way. But if there is anything you're not clear about, or if you've got any questions, drop me a line in the comments and I'll do my best to help you out. I mentioned earlier about that video I made a few weeks ago where I took you behind the scenes here in my studio and showed you all the kit I use. Well, that's the video I've left for you on screen to watch right now.